Hey everyone! So, I've been thinking a lot lately about how we perceive warnings, you know? How sometimes the people who seem to have our best interests at heart, the ones who genuinely care, are also the ones who rub us the wrong way, who seem overly critical or just plain annoying. And then there are the others, the ones who charm your socks off, who seem to offer everything you've ever wanted, but who are secretly, well, not what they seem. This is a story about that moment, the gut-wrenching, eye-opening moment when you realize the person everyone warned you about was actually trying to protect you all along. My name is Sarah, and for most of my life, that person was my Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol wasn't your typical sweet cookie-baking aunt. She was a force. A whirlwind of unsolicited advice, blunt observations, and a general air of skepticism about absolutely everything. She was my mom's older sister, a single woman who lived alone in a slightly cluttered but cozy house, surrounded by books and houseplants. She was incredibly intelligent, fiercely independent, but she had a reputation, a big one. My parents, bless their hearts, were constantly warning me about her. Carol means well, Sarah, but she can be a bit negative. My mom would say, usually after Aunt Carol had just pointed out a flaw in my boyfriend's character or questioned my career choices. Don't take her too seriously, honey, my dad would add with a shrug. She's just a bit cynical, sees the worst in everyone. My friends, after a particularly awkward family gathering where Aunt Carol might have quizzed them about their life plans or dissected their social media presence, would just give me that look. You know the one. The "your aunt is a lot" look. Even my grandparents, who adored her, would sigh and say, "Carol just worries too much." So yeah, Aunt Carol was the one to watch out for. She was the family truth teller, but her truth often came delivered with a blunt force trauma. If I showed her a new dress, she'd say, "It's nice, but it makes your shoulders look broad." If I was excited about a new job, she'd ask, "Have you read the fine print on the contract? What about their turnover rate?" If I was gushing about a new crush, she'd just narrow her eyes and say, "He seems a little too smooth, don't you think?" I rolled my eyes at her, just like everyone else. I brushed her off. She's just being Aunt Carol. I'd tell myself, she's probably jealous, or she just doesn't get it. I was young, optimistic, and frankly a bit naive. I wanted to see the good in people, to believe in possibilities, not to dissect every single potential problem. Her warnings felt like negativity, like she was trying to dim my light rather than protect it. I honestly just thought she was kind of a buzzkill. Then came Mark. Oh, Mark. He was everything I thought I wanted at 23. Tall, charming, with a killer smile and eyes that sparkled when he talked about his dreams. He was an aspiring musician, a singer-songwriter with big ambitions and an even bigger personality. He played guitar like a god, wrote lyrics that made your heart ache, and had this incredible ability to make everyone around him feel like they were the most important person in the room. He was magnetic. Seriously, he had this vibe, like he was born to be a star. We met at an open mic night, where I was just hanging out with friends, and he was the headliner. He came over after his set, complimented my laugh, and the rest, as they say, was history. My parents were initially wary. A musician, Sarah? What about his stability? But Mark quickly won them over with his polite demeanor, his respectful attitude, and his grand visions for his career. He wasn't just a bumming around musician, he had a business plan. He talked about networking, about branding. He sounded legit, even to them. My friends loved him too. He was always down for a good time, always making everyone laugh, and he treated me like I was his queen. I was totally smitten. Like, head over heels, can't, eat, can't, sleep smitten. Of course, Aunt Carol met Mark. It was at a family dinner, about a month after we started dating. Mark was in his element, charming everyone, telling witty stories about his gigs, even singing a little ditty for my grandma. Everyone was beaming, nodding, captivated. Everyone except Aunt Carol. She sat there, silently observing, her eyes never leaving him. I could feel her gaze, like a laser beam, dissecting him. Later that evening, when Mark had gone to the restroom, Aunt Carol leaned across the table, her voice low. "Sarah," she said, "he's too good to be true. He's got that look in his eye. The kind that sees dollar signs, not people." My stomach dropped. I immediately got defensive. Aunt Carol, seriously? He's wonderful. He's sweet, he's talented, he makes me so happy. She just sighed, a deep, weary sigh. Honey, I've seen his type before. All flash, no substance. He'll make you feel like the most important person in the world until he gets what he wants. He's a user, Sarah. Mark my words. She even added, and he looks like he's skipping a few meals to pay for those fancy clothes he wears. What's his real deal? My blood boiled. That's unfair. You don't even know him. You always do this. You find fault in everyone I bring home. Why can't you just be happy for me for once? I spat it out, my voice laced with venom. My mom quickly intervened. Sarah, honey, don't be rude. Carol, let's just enjoy dinner. Aunt Carol just gave me that knowing, sad look and dropped the subject. But the seed of resentment she'd planted against her bloomed. I literally told Mark later that night, my aunt is just a bitter old lady. Don't mind her. And he just smiled and said, it's okay, baby. Some people just can't see true love. He was good. So good. Over the next few months, Mark and I grew closer. He moved into my apartment, citing struggles with rent and the need to focus on his music. I didn't mind. I was thrilled to have him. He was always talking about his big break, how he just needed a little more capital for studio time, or to press his first EP, or to fund a music video. He'd talk about how we would travel the world once he made it big. He even started sketching out a business plan for a new music app, something revolutionary. He needed a small investment to get the ball rolling, just for server costs, for legal fees, for a marketing push. It was always a small investment. I had a decent savings account from years of working part-time jobs during college and after graduation. My parents had also given me a little nest egg for a down payment on a future apartment, which I was supposed to be saving. Mark knew about it. He never asked for money directly, not in a crude way. It was always framed as an opportunity, a partnership. Imagine Sarah, he'd say, holding my hand, looking into my eyes. We could build this together. You'd be part of something huge. We'd be rich, and you'd have helped me achieve my dream. He made it sound like an act of love, a testament to my belief in him. He made it seem like I'd be investing in our future. I started loaning him money, first a few $100 for a new guitar string, then a few thousand for studio time, then a more significant chunk for his app development. Each time, he'd promise to pay me back as soon as the big deal comes through. He had a way of making you feel guilty if you hesitated, subtly implying you didn't believe in him, didn't support his dreams. He'd even get a little sad, it's okay, I'll find another way. I just thought we were a team. And I'd cave every single time. My rational brain was screaming, red flags, Sarah, red flags. But my heart, so desperate to believe in him, to be loved by him, ignored them. Meanwhile, Aunt Carol would call. Not often, but when she did, her questions were pointed. How's Mark doing with his app? She'd ask, her voice dripping with skepticism. Still couch surfing, or has he actually gotten a job yet? I'd get annoyed. He's working on his passion, Aunt Carol. He's going to be famous. She'd just hum. Make sure he's not working on your bank account more than his music, honey. I'd literally hang up on her sometimes, or make excuses to get off the phone. I started avoiding her calls, canceling plans. My parents would ask, why are you so distant with Carol? She just cares about you. And I'd say, she's always so negative. I don't need that kind of energy in my life right now. The relationship with Mark started to feel off after about a year. His big breaks never materialized. The app was still in development. He was always busy, always had an excuse for why he couldn't pay me back, always needed just a little more for the next crucial step. He started being less affectionate, more withdrawn. The charm started to feel thin, like a worn-out coat. He'd come home late, smelling faintly of alcohol, and sometimes wouldn't even acknowledge me. He'd get defensive if I brought up money, or his lack of progress. You're always nagging me, Sarah, don't you trust me? He'd start gaslighting me, making me doubt my own observations. You're imagining things. I told you, the money is coming. You're just impatient. Then came the day it all imploded. I was at work, and I got a call from my bank. My savings account was almost empty. Not just almost, but literally a few $100s left. The down payment nest egg, everything I had worked for, was gone. I ran home in a panic. Mark wasn't there. His guitar was gone. His clothes were gone. A single note was left on the kitchen counter, hastily scrawled. Sarah, I had to leave. Big opportunity. We'll pay you back. Don't worry. Love, Mark. My world shattered. It wasn't just the money, though, that was devastating. It was the betrayal. The absolute soul-crushing realization that I had been played. Mark had literally drained my bank account, taking everything I had and just ghosted. Poof. Gone. I sat on the floor of my empty apartment, surrounded by the silence, the cold, hard truth hitting me like a ton of bricks. And that's when it hit me. Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol. Every single warning, every skeptical glance, every blunt question, every seemingly cynical comment, he's too good to be true. He sees dollar signs, not people. He's a user. Make sure he's not working on your bank account more than his music. She had literally called it, every single thing. The person everyone, including myself, had dismissed as negative, bitter, or jealous. She was trying to protect me. She wasn't seeing the worst in people. She was seeing the truth that my naive, hopeful eyes refused to acknowledge. She saw the red flags that I, blinded by charm and a desperate desire for love, had deliberately ignored. The shame was overwhelming. Not just the shame of being financially ruined, but the profound embarrassment of being so incredibly foolish. Of ignoring the person who loved me enough to tell me hard truths, even when they were unpopular. I had literally shunned her advice, dismissed her wisdom, and now I was paying the price. I called my parents, sobbing. They were shocked, heartbroken for me, but I could hear the underlying, "We told you so," in their hushed tones. They helped me pick up the pieces, navigate the police report, which went nowhere, of course, and figure out how to rebuild my finances. But there was one call I knew I had to make myself. The hardest one. I called Aunt Carol. My hand was shaking. She answered on the second ring, her voice surprisingly soft. "Sarah, you okay, honey? Haven't heard from you in a while." I just broke down. "Aunt Carol," I choked out. He left. He took everything. All my savings. You were right. About everything." There was a long pause on the other end. I braced myself for the "I told you so," the triumphant tone, the validation of her years of warnings. But it didn't come. Instead, her voice was gentle, tinged with a deep sadness. "Oh, Sarah," she said, and I could hear the genuine compassion, the concern. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." She didn't gloat. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just listened, patiently, as I poured out the entire story, the details of the deception, the depth of my foolishness. When I finally finished, exhausted and raw, she said, "Come over, I'll make you some tea." I went to her house. It felt different now, less cluttered, more comforting. She sat me down, handed me a steaming mug of chamomile tea, and just looked at me with those knowing eyes. "I know it hurts, kiddo," she said, her voice raspy. "It's the worst kind of pain, the feeling of being betrayed by someone you trusted. But you're not foolish, Sarah. You're human, and you wanted to believe in someone." "But you saw it," I whispered. "How? How did you know?" She took a sip of her tea. "Experience, I guess," she said slowly, "and a healthy dose of cynicism. I've been around the block a few times, Sarah. I've seen enough smooth talkers, enough people who promise the moon and deliver nothing but heartache. My first husband, he was a lot like Mark, all charm, no substance. He ran off with most of my savings years ago. It taught me a lot about reading people, about seeing past the pretty packaging to what's really inside. My jaw dropped. I had never known that about her. My stoic, cynical Aunt Carol had her own deep scars, her own history of betrayal that had forged her into the vigilant, wary woman she was. She wasn't just being negative, she was trying to shield me from a pain she knew intimately. "When I see someone like Mark," she continued, "who's too eager to please, who spins grand tales without any real action, who's always got a charming excuse for why things aren't quite happening, my radar goes off. And when he looked at you, Sarah, he wasn't looking at you. He was looking at what you represented. Opportunity, stability, a way to keep his facade going. I hated seeing that. You're my niece, kiddo. I wasn't trying to make you miserable. I was trying to stop you from making a huge mistake. But sometimes, when you're young, you just have to learn the hard way." There were no tears from her, no dramatic declarations, just a quiet, profound understanding. In that moment, the years of resentment I had harbored against her dissolved. The negative, cynical, Aunt Carol wasn't a buzzkill. She was a sentinel, a protector. Her seemingly harsh words actually a shield against a harsh world. Her love wasn't expressed in hugs and compliments. It was expressed in truth, however unpalatable. It took me a long time to heal. Years, honestly. I rebuilt my savings, slowly, diligently. I learned to trust my gut, but also to truly listen to the people who challenge me, even when it's uncomfortable. I learned that warnings don't always come wrapped in pretty bows. Sometimes they come from the gruff, seemingly negative people who have seen enough of life's ugly side to recognize danger when it's still far off. My relationship with Aunt Carol changed fundamentally after that. I stopped avoiding her calls. I started asking her for advice, not just about finances, but about life, about people. And she softened too. A little. She still speaks her mind, still sees the potential pitfalls. But now I listen differently. I hear the care behind the bluntness, the protection beneath the skepticism. It was a painful lesson, one I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it taught me the difference between true support and superficial charm. It taught me that sometimes the greatest acts of love are the hardest truths to hear. And it taught me to appreciate the Aunt Carols of the world, the people who, even when everyone warns you against them, are standing guard, quietly, fiercely trying to keep you safe. They might not be the most fun at parties, but they're the ones who will catch you when you fall, and probably tell you why you should have seen the banana peel in the first place. Thanks for listening. The next story will be about my ex-boyfriend who stalked me for 2 years.